So Canada continues to lead the world in woke lunacy. Here's the headline. Canadian Human Rights Commission claims Christmas is rooted in identity as a settler colonial state. And who is this Canadian Human Rights Commission, you ask? Well, they do things like persecuting comedians for telling jokes they don't like. So basically, they're just far-left assholes who want to make everything worse. And of course, as you would expect, they're not big fans of Christmas or Christianity. And keep in mind, I'm not even religious myself. I'm just not an awful person that wants to ruin Christmas, says a discussion paper on religious intolerance just out from the Canadian Human Rights Commission claims that Christianity in practice in Canada is essentially a form of discrimination. Only through better understanding of how religious intolerance takes place in Canada can our legislation, policies, and programs be crafted to address the causes and consequences of this intolerance. Seems to me like perhaps the Canadian Human Rights Commission needs to address its own intolerance to Christianity. But of course, that's not going to happen because this is just another institution in Canada that is nothing more than a far-left echo chamber and a tool to punish those people who don't have the right beliefs. And what the commission actually does is it sorts out complaints that are lobbied and then decides which ones should go to the human rights tribunals, which are far-left kangaroo courts. It says here on their government website that one major difference between human rights legislation and criminal law lies in the different standards of proof applied to evidence at a tribunal hearing. In criminal law, allegations must be proven beyond a reasonable doubt. The standard of proof under the code, as in civil law, is on the balance of probabilities. In other words, did the discrimination more likely occur than not? Spoiler alert, it always occurred. And I'll tell you what, I can't help but think that perhaps Canadians like Christmas more than they like the Canadian Human Rights Commission. Let's actually go to their website. Here's the first page. It says, I want to complain. If you believe you've experienced discrimination or harassment, you may be able to file a complaint with the Human Rights Commission. So, yeah, they're here for people to complain. How about this? Every voice counts. Anti-racist transformation from the inside out. That's sounding very woke to me. Let's see, the Commission's anti-racism journey. It's always journeys and transformations. It sounds so nice and positive, when all they're actually doing is telling you not to ask people where they come from. As Canada's national human rights institution, the Commission has long acknowledged that systemic anti-black racism is real in Canada. I find it strange how they focus on one group, like Canada's multicultural. And Canada does not have the same history as the United States in respect to black people, although the Canadian left very much wishes that it were so. But because it's not, well, they're just faking it. But I still find it weird they focus on this one group, which is 4.3% of Canada's population. And I think this is just the far left's obsession in Canada with American politics. But anyway, no organization is immune, and it is up to all of us to uncover and reject all forms of racism and discrimination wherever they arise. Well, what if I don't see any, right? Well, that's the thing. You have to. In fact, no organization is immune, and it's imperative that you be constantly uncovering and rejecting all forms of racism and discrimination, even if they're not there, even if they don't exist. Just make something up. And that, of course, is exactly what they do. But anyway, back to Christmas. The Commission claims that discrimination against religious minorities in Canada is grounded in Canada's history of colonialism. Well, but isn't it true that everybody that comes to Canada, regardless of their background or religion, are also colonists? I mean, is there a specific year when the people coming here were no longer colonists? Was it the year that Trudeau got elected, maybe? So already this isn't making any sense, but whatever. Quote, the history manifests itself in present-day systemic religious discrimination. An obvious example is the statutory holidays in Canada, the paper reads. Statutory holidays related to Christianity, including Christmas and Easter, are the only Canadian statutory holidays linked to religious holy days, the paper states. Well, guess what? It's a Christian country. I mean, if I went to India, I'm not going to say, hey, stop oppressing me with the four-armed lady. And look, at the very least, Canada is a culturally Christian country. In other words, Christmas is just normal here, and people like it. Quote, Canada's history with religious intolerance is deeply rooted in our identity as a settler colonial state. The paper reads, quote, a key example of which we still see the effects today was the systematic effort to delegitimize and eradicate indigenous spirituality and ways of life through the use of residential schools. Of course, it's a lot more complicated than that, but don't bother telling them because they've already made up their minds. And by the way, 47% of Indigenous people in Canada identify as Christians. So guess what? They like Christmas too. So basically, they're mad because Easter and Christmas are statutory holidays. And obviously, that's oppressive. But what it's really about is destroying tradition. Can we say cultural revolution yet? And again, I think people like Christmas more than the Human Rights Commission. Christmas should get a tree, a nice dinner, and presents. If you get anything from the far leftists at the Canadian Human Rights Commission, it'd probably be a trigger warning and a copy of the Communist Manifesto. But what is the point of this? I imagine the point of this is setting the stage for just banning public Christmas displays. Any other kind of religious display probably be fine. But Christmas, it's settler colonial bullshit. Now, I imagine it'll be sending people to this page here. I want to complain. And what's your complaint? I saw a Santa at the mall and now I have PTSD. And now I'm too depressed to even dye my armpit hair purple. Anyway, can I have some money now? That's all I got to say about that. Please subscribe, like, and share. Sharing really helps me out. I thank you for that. I will see you next time.